Fear of the unknown fuels many a person's horrors. But what happens when the unexplainable looks quite familiar? Humanoids are not merely frightening, but they tend to fascinate people just as much as they scare them. For ages now, different accounts claim to have run across creatures that resemble humans, yet are anything but. Are they from Earth or even this dimension? And what exactly is their business, waltzing around on two legs? That's a human's privilege, isn't it? So for your pleasure tonight, I have for you 10 Reddit stories which range from humanoid aliens to man-like demons. I shall discuss for you these unsettling and strange encounters with these things that look kind of like you. So, close your blinds, dim those lights, cuddle under your favorite blanket, and let's begin. Number 1. 3 months ago, I was camping with a friend in a very remote part of Northern California. I'm a massive wilderness junkie. I've been camping all my life, and I spend much of my free time hiking, rock climbing, hunting, and things like that. A friend of mine who enjoys the outdoors wanted to head up to the Sierras for the weekend and asked me to go with him. It was our second night, and we were sitting up by the fire. We weren't staying at a campsite. We had hiked about 10 miles from our cars to a clearing with a beautiful view. He had stayed there once before. At around 10 p.m., my friend had got tired and went to sleep in his tent, and I wanted to stay up for a while. About 45 minutes after we went to bed, I saw this object coming up from the valley below. It was a basic flying saucer shape, with multiple circular lights rotating around the edges that changed color over and over. I was absolutely in shock. I watched it for maybe 15 seconds. Then I decided I had to wake him up so he could see it and wouldn't think I was crazy. I stood, and when I looked back towards it, the thing was gone. I called out his name, and that's when everything got really messed up. I didn't hear my voice when I called out. Everything was completely silent. I could move my eyes around, but I couldn't move my body. I remember seeing the fire had completely frozen, and everything looked like a picture, like time had stopped or something. Then there was a flash of light, and I blacked out. I woke up later, just as the sun was starting to rise. I was outside lying in the dirt, shivering next to the fire that had long gone out. I felt like I had been drugged, totally in this haze. I sluggishly yelled out for my friend a couple of times, and he came out of the tent. He was really confused, to say the least. I had tried to explain what happened, but my memory was really foggy, and I just couldn't articulate it. We left within 30 minutes. I was totally silent on the car ride home, falling in and out of sleep for 7 hours. He dropped me off at my house, and I passed out for basically an entire day. A few weeks later, I was messing around with an amp, and it released this static O sound when I unplugged my guitar. For some reason, this sound somehow triggered my memory, and I remembered everything. When I came back into consciousness, I was suspended literally in this circular mechanism, in a position very similar to Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. These clear glass-like shackle-type restraints were holding me in place. I was completely nude, and standing above me were 3 typical aliens. They were around 4 feet tall, and were wearing white spandex-like suits. 2 were just standing there observing the other, who was extracting blood from a vein under my armpit, with this weird-looking syringe. Although they didn't show any real reaction, I could still tell that they were surprised that I was awake. I couldn't move at all, except for my eyes and lips. I was absolutely terrified, in a sort of fight-or-flight mode, my heart pounding from the influx of adrenaline. I can't even begin to tell you how scared I was. But I also felt total rage. I wanted to kill them. I wanted to rip out this device and completely destroy them. My brain went totally primal. Just animal instinct. And I could just tell that they could sense my anger, because they all stepped back, simultaneously. I'm 5'6" and 140 pounds, and I was hoping I looked as threatening as possible, which is silly, because I was totally paralyzed, and therefore completely harmless. 2 of them disappeared from my view, and presumably left the room. The other one was just staring at me, void of any emotion. I wanted so badly to just shut my eyes, but I forced myself to just stare right back at it, trying my hardest not to blink. Then the 2 others came back, and now they weren't alone. I honestly couldn't believe my eyes. Standing behind them were 2 very tall, very human-looking beings, a male and a female. They looked like Norse gods, with bright golden hair and massive eyes. The males were dark blue and the females were violet. I suppose they are what the UFO community refers to as Nordics. This was quite bizarre to me. My family descended from Sweden, and I'm very Nordic looking. Blonde hair, blue eyes, the works. I know this is cliche, but I heard a feminine voice in my mind. For some reason, I could understand what she was telling me, although it wasn't like she was saying anything in English. She told me something like, "Be calm, you're not in danger." I relaxed and asked her what they were wanting from me. She said that they were just checking up on me. I practically blacked out after hearing that. I asked her what she meant, and she said that she had saved me when I first came into being. I immediately knew exactly what she was talking about. I was born 2 months premature. My mother was horribly sick during labor. We both had fevers of 104. The strange thing is, the doctors had absolutely no idea what was wrong with us. I was given 2 spinal taps, my mother 3. I spent 4 nights in that bubble housing ICU thing. There was a decent chance I was going to die. Then one day I started getting better and made a full recovery. The doctors were very worried that the whole ordeal might have permanently damaged my body and possibly my brain. But I was totally fine. I asked her, "Why did you save me?" This time I heard a deep male voice stating that this is a conversation for a later time. I asked him if they were human. He said no. I was confused, considering that they looked quite human. I asked him if man had come for them. He said yes, that they had come here 200,000 years ago and created mankind by combining their DNA with that of our primate ancestors. I wanted to know why they looked especially similar to me, more than other humans. He stated that many males of their kind found female humans attractive and mated with them. This directly passed on some of their physical features to Nordic people. I wanted to know more, but they declined and said it was time for me to go back. I blacked out instantly and woke up by the extinguished campfire, clothes on and shivering. I understand that this sounds absolutely ridiculous and very impossible, but it happened. I don't know what to do. I've been completely lost since the encounter, but I already feel a bit of relief after posting my story here. Number 2. I'm from Indiana, and a couple years back, my mother was driving my sister and I to school. To set the stage, it was a foggy morning, and it was on a stretch of road with a forest on one side and a cornfield on the other. Out of the blue, this creature that we couldn't identify ran across the road, causing my mom to slam on the brakes. It looked about the size of a grown man and was covered in dark hair. It was bipedal, but it was loping really oddly. Needless to say, it wasn't a coyote, and I've never heard of bears being in central Indiana. Admittedly, it was foggy, so I could have misidentified it. Number 3. So this happened a long time ago. I must have been at least 18, no older than 20. I was sleeping on my back in my bed in my parents' house where I lived, when I suddenly woke up from a deep, dreamless sleep. I opened my eyes, and a male, humanoid shadow seemed like it pushed itself up from laying on top of me. It seemed surprised that I woke up, interrupting whatever it was doing. It wasn't anything sexual. If anything, it was, well, I'm not sure how to describe it. Feeding or scanning me? Makes the most sense. I know both of those are sort of at odds with each other. It swooped back at me in a rush, and I fell back asleep instantly. I woke up about 2 hours later than my normal wake-up time, and I felt okay, just a little sluggish. I never saw it again. Number 4. I've never had an experience myself, but I do believe in this and similar phenomena. I have never spoken with my boyfriend about this subreddit, unknown humanoids, or any paranormal occurrences for that matter. On Friday night, he and I were at a friend's house and decided to leave at 1 a.m. It's very foggy outside, being that we live near a river and creeks in a rural Illinois. He goes to the gas station on his way home to the rural town where we both live, about a block away from each other. I get home and I don't hear from him for quite a while, until he calls me, very shaken up and crying. He says on his drive home, he saw something crouched in the road on the right side. It looked to be fairly small, possibly a child. He rolled his window down and asked if they were okay, and got no answer. The thing only continued sobbing. He pulls over and gets out of the car, walks up to whatever this was, and attempted to ask if it needed any help. The thing stands up on 2 feet, and is now 6 feet tall, and lets out a god-awful screech, and it runs off the road into the dense woods, near the Kaskaskia River. He can't say it was a boy or a girl, but he can say he never saw anything like that before. He's pretty jarred by the whole experience. Number 5. This happened in the middle of the night at my mom's house some years back in Northern California. I was asleep on the floor in the living room. Next to the living room is a room that can be seen through 2 large windows and French doors. We call it the middle room. Next to that was my mom and stepdad's bedroom. The light in the middle room was left on, partly dimmed at night. I woke up and saw 3 short gray aliens walking around in the middle room. They were about 5 feet tall, had long skinny arms, and were wearing dark-colored jumpsuits. The arms stood out to me the most because of how thin they were, with no muscle tone like you would see in a human. The eyes looked solid black and were larger than a human's, though not as large as shown in some depictions. I don't remember about the nose and the mouth, other than those features were small and not noticeable. I don't remember any details about the hands. I was able to sit up part way as I was watching them, but I had no energy to do anything else. They didn't seem to notice that I was watching them. Within a couple of minutes, I fell back to sleep. I'm guessing they transmitted something to keep everyone passed out, but sometimes it doesn't always work 100%. Here's the kicker. In the morning, my mom walked in and said the aliens were there the night before. I then told her that I had saw them too, and asked her how many there were and what they looked like. Her description matched what I had seen. She had other alien encounters, but this was the only time that there was a witness. me. Number 6. I don't remember it completely, but my grandpa once told us a story about an experience he had while he used to live in a small ranch in Mexico. He was with his older brother, so I think my grandfather was about 12 or 14 at the time, and while he was with his brother out in the ranch, they heard something behind some bushes, and he said it sounded like singing. He and his brother both went to investigate it, and when they looked behind the bush, they saw a couple of little people. Doin D is what they call them in Mexico. They didn't see my grandpa or his brother, and his brother suggested that they both get out of there before they were seen. They returned home, and I'm not sure if they ever saw them again after that. Number 7. This happened to my brother, not me, but I remember the night it happened, and it still gives me chills to this day. I can still remember the sound of him running up the stairs screaming, "No! No! No!" The look on his face, and him shaking uncontrollably. It happened about 15 years ago, and this is exactly how he still explains the story to this day. Our parents' old house had a den, which had a few couches, a bathroom, a TV, and a laundry room. My brother and I had all our video game stuff down in the den, our computers, etc. It was basically a room that only we used. One night after a late night of video games, we both took a couch and watched a little TV before calling it a night. I fell asleep and woke up later and went up to my room, leaving my brother still sleeping on the other couch. The couch he was laying on was against a wall. While laying back on the couch, you could still see the TV, and if you looked straight over your feet, you would see a very small hallway and the bathroom door, which was open at the time. We had a dog, Candy, a small Springer Spaniel. My brother said he woke up to a noise in the bathroom. The lights were all off in the house, only street lamps and moonlight, preventing it from being pitch black. He told me that the noise was a growl, and he knew it wasn't the dog. But in the moment, he so hoped it was. He said he quickly shot up from the laying down position and could clearly see a small black shadow running in circles on the bathroom floor. The bathroom floor was tile, and you could definitely be able to hear the dog's claws as they touched the bathroom floor, especially at the speed it was running in circles. But my brother said he heard nothing. So he then called out the dog's name, hoping that it was her, and that it would stop doing whatever it was doing. "Candy?" he yelled, and as soon as whatever it was heard that, it stopped immediately. He then heard what he explained as a gurgly growl. At that point he knew what he already knew. It wasn't the dog. Whatever it was started growing larger and larger, soon taking up the whole bathroom with its size. It's funny now, but my brother explained the creature looking like Doomsday from DC Comics. Not to discredit the whole story, but saying he looked like a comic book villain. But to a 14-year-old, this was the best comparison to what he saw. He said that he didn't remember how he was able to move so quickly, but he ran up both flights of stairs, screaming, "No! No! No!" He woke up the whole house. Sometimes it still keeps him up all these years later. He was never visited by the creature again. Me, being into this sort of thing, I was never able to find something that could possibly be what he saw. It had to be supernatural. It was in the house and then disappeared. My only explanation is it was a demon of sort. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks. Number 8. An investigation/shamanic group on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, the Okalala, Lakota, South Dakota, was called in to investigate and bless a home. The incidents began when two sisters observed a black-eyed boy outside the home. Not long after, a group of ashen, white-skinned children with black eyes were seen, congregating around the property, in an attempt to interact with other children living there. The first two occasions, there were only two of them, and they asked to be let inside the house to get food. The third time, a third one showed up, and this time they asked for blood. They were never granted access to the house. The children described their voices as not normal, robotic, and monotone. Pets also went missing around this time, around the property. The parents of the children recalled seeing these spooky children as well. They also claimed to have noticed strange events around their home, including poltergeist activity and the sighting of, on at least 2 occasions, strange entities that they later thought to be an alien. Number 9. When I was camping with my family several years ago, my father and I went walking in the dark with a flashlight when we heard a kind of chirping noise, like a person doing a crappy imitation of a bird call. We stopped and shined our flashlight around, and then up into the trees. The beam landed on something, maybe 3 feet tall, standing up. A humanoid crouching with its hands holding onto the branches. It was hairless and very pale-skinned, pretty much white. Its head was abnormally large, with 2 huge eyes and bat-like ears. We only saw it for a split second because my dad jerked the flashlight away when he first saw it. And when we tried to find it again with the flashlight, it was gone without a trace. I asked my dad if he had seen that, and he had. We were both very perplexed by it. When I've told other people this story, they speculate that it could have been an owl or some other animal. But my dad and I are both fairly experienced outdoors and sportsmen, and we've never seen anything that looked like that before or since. I went back and double-checked with my mother, and she's fairly certain this took place at a campground near Stanley, Idaho, at Lola Creek Campground. She also told me that we left early because there was something moving around the campsite at night that spooked my dad, which I only learned just now. Number 10. So, this encounter happened 2 years ago while I was living with my parents in Texas. At the time, I was waking up from a short nap, and I didn't see it as anything unusual. I just figured it was some kind of partial dream or something like that. I was napping on my bed. At the time, I had a futon, so I wasn't too far off the ground, in the middle of the day. I can't remember exactly the timing of when this took place to save my life, but as I opened my eyes, I saw, for only a second, the image of some white humanoid creature kneeling on its haunches, looking at me. It couldn't have been that tall, since its eyes were only inches above my bed. I could see the top of its knees, which it was resting its head against. While I can't remember many details about its face, I knew somehow that it wasn't entirely right, for lack of a better term. I can't remember if it even had any hair on its head, or the color of its eyes, but I can remember that its skin was very pale, and it looked as if it were just skin and bones. I don't know why the image of this creature was so vivid even though I only saw it for a second, but even to this day it stands out. I've only recently been able to give a name to this thing, since I saw a post on this subreddit describing these type of creatures as crawlers. Alright, my lovely lilies, thank you so much for watching the new video. If you can, hit that subscribe and like button, comment below and tell me your thoughts. Also, don't forget to tap the little notification bell so you're always in the know on this channel. As well, guys, you can always find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and always you can hit me up in my emails. Feel free to send me your stories, whether they're fiction or totally true. I'm always up for some great stories. And oh, by the way, until next time, sweet dreams.